Maya had always been the kind of person who preferred books over parties, quiet corners over crowded rooms, and text messages over phone calls. At 28 years old, she'd built a comfortable life working at the public library downtown, where she could spend her days surrounded by stories without having to tell too many of her own. But there was one thing Maya feared more than small talk with strangers: doctor's appointments. For the past 6 months, she'd been ignoring the reminder letters from her insurance company about her annual health screening. Each envelope that arrived in her mailbox got buried deeper in the drawer of her kitchen counter, hidden beneath takeout menus and old grocery receipts. She knew she should go. She knew it was important. But the thought of sitting in a sterile waiting room, of making awkward conversation with nurses, of having to undress in front of a stranger, it all made her stomach twist into knots. Then came the letter that changed everything. It arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, in a certified envelope that required her signature. Maya's hands shook as she opened it, already knowing it couldn't be good news. The words seemed to jump off the page. Abnormal results from her last screening 2 years ago. Immediate follow-up required, potential health risks if ignored. She read the letter 3 times, her heart pounding harder with each pass. There was no escaping it now. She had to go. That evening, after her shift at the library ended, Maya sat on her worn couch with her laptop balanced on her knees and pulled up the website for Sterling Medical Center. It was one of those fancy private hospitals on the east side of town, the kind of place where celebrities and wealthy business people went for treatment. Her insurance had partnered with them recently, and according to the letter, this was where she needed to go for her screening. The website was sleek and professional, filled with photos of smiling doctors in pristine white coats and patients who looked far too happy to be in a hospital. Maya clicked through to the appointment booking page, her finger hovering over the mouse as she tried to build up the courage to actually schedule something. She had one specific request: a female doctor. It wasn't that she had anything against male physicians, but given the nature of the examination, she'd feel infinitely more comfortable with a woman. The website had a filter option, and Maya carefully selected every female doctor in the breast health department before choosing the earliest available appointment. Dr. Rebecca Morrison. The name appeared on her screen along with a kind-looking woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and warm eyes. Perfect. Maya could do this. She clicked confirm before she could talk herself out of it, and just like that, she had an appointment scheduled for the following Friday at 2 in the afternoon. The week leading up to the appointment felt like the longest of Maya's life. She threw herself into her work at the library, reorganizing the fiction section with an intensity that made her coworkers raise their eyebrows. Her best friend Riley called her twice to check in, sensing something was off, but Maya brushed it off with vague excuses about being tired. She couldn't quite explain the depth of her anxiety. Even to Riley, it wasn't just about the appointment itself, it was about everything. Being vulnerable, being seen, having to exist in a space where she couldn't hide behind a book or a computer screen. Friday arrived too quickly. Maya called in sick to work, which was only half a lie considering how nauseous she felt. She changed her outfit 4 times before settling on a simple blue sweater and jeans, spent 20 minutes trying to calm her breathing, and finally forced herself out the door. Sterling Medical Center was even more intimidating in person than it had been on the website. The building was all glass and steel, reaching up into the sky like something from a science fiction movie. Maya stood on the sidewalk across the street for a full 5 minutes, watching well-dressed people flow in and out of the revolving doors, before she finally made herself walk inside. The lobby took her breath away. It looked more like a 5-star hotel than a hospital, with marble floors, a huge chandelier, and a reception desk that stretched the length of the room. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. Everything smelled like expensive air freshener and hand sanitizer. Maya approached the reception desk, her voice barely above a whisper as she gave her name to the polished woman sitting behind it. The receptionist clicked through her computer, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the keyboard. Maya Patel, 2 o'clock appointment for a breast health screening, the woman confirmed, looking up with a practiced smile. You'll be on the 4th floor, suite 4C. The elevators are just past the coffee shop on your right. Maya mumbled her thanks and followed the directions, her sneakers squeaking slightly against the pristine floor. She felt completely out of place among the expensive coats and designer handbags floating through the lobby. This was definitely not her world. The fourth floor was quieter, decorated in soothing shades of cream and pale blue. Maya found Suite 4C and checked in with another receptionist, who handed her a clipboard full of forms and directed her to the waiting area. She filled out the paperwork with shaking hands, her mind racing through worst-case scenarios. What if the abnormal results meant something serious? What if she'd waited too long? What if Maya Patel? A nurse in navy blue scrubs stood in the doorway, holding a tablet and smiling warmly. Maya gathered her things and followed the woman down a hallway lined with examination rooms. "First time at Sterling?" the nurse asked, making pleasant small talk that Maya could barely respond to beyond nods and one-word answers. They stopped at a room halfway down the hall. The nurse took Maya's vitals, blood pressure a bit high, which wasn't surprising given her anxiety, and went through a series of routine questions about her medical history. Then came the part Maya had been dreading. "All right, Dr. Morrison is running just a few minutes behind schedule," the nurse said, handing Maya a hospital gown. "If you could change into this, opening in the front, and have a seat on the examination table, the doctor will be right in." The nurse left, closing the door behind her, and Maya stared at the pale blue gown in her hands. This was it. No turning back now. She changed quickly, folding her clothes into a neat pile on the chair in the corner, and perched on the edge of the examination table, the paper crinkling beneath her. She waited, listening to the muffled sounds of the hospital beyond the door. Footsteps passing by, distant conversations, the hum of medical equipment. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Then she heard it, a knock on the door. "Come in," Maya managed to say, her voice tight. The door opened and Maya's entire world tilted sideways. The person walking through the door was definitely not Dr. Rebecca Morrison. Instead, a man stepped into the room, and not just any man. He looked like he'd walked straight out of a magazine spread about successful young professionals. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair that was perfectly styled in that effortlessly casual way that probably took effort. He wore a white doctor's coat over an expensive-looking navy shirt, and when he looked up from the tablet in his hands, Maya found herself staring into the warmest brown eyes she'd ever seen. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The doctor seemed just as surprised to see her as she was to see him. He blinked, glanced down at his tablet as if to confirm he was in the right room, then looked back up at Maya with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Hello," he said finally, his voice smooth and professional. "I'm Dr. Hunt. I apologize for the confusion. Dr. Morrison had a family emergency this morning and had to leave unexpectedly. I'm covering her appointments for the afternoon." Maya felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. This couldn't be happening. This was literally her worst nightmare. She'd specifically requested a female doctor, and instead she got someone who looked like he should be on the cover of a business magazine, not examining patients in a hospital. I didn't," Maya stammered, her face burning red. I thought." Dr. Hunt must have noticed her distress because his expression softened immediately. He set his tablet down on the counter and held up his hands in a calming gesture. "I completely understand," he said gently. "I know this isn't what you were expecting, and I want you to know that you have absolutely no obligation to continue with this appointment. If you'd prefer to reschedule with Dr. Morrison when she returns next week, that's completely fine. Your comfort is the priority here." His kindness somehow made it worse. Maya's mind raced. She could leave. She could reschedule. But then she thought about the letter, about the words "immediate follow-up required," about how long it had taken her to build up the courage to come here in the first place. If she left now, would she ever come back? How long until Dr. Morrison is back?" Maya asked quietly. Dr. Hunt checked his tablet. "She should be back in the office on Wednesday. I could have the front desk schedule you for her first available appointment. Wednesday, 5 days away, 5 more days of anxiety, of wondering, of the unknown hanging over her head like a dark cloud." Maya took a deep breath, her fingers gripping the edge of the examination table. She thought about all the books she'd read, all the stories about brave heroines who faced their fears. She'd always admired those characters, wondered what it would be like to be that courageous. Maybe this was her moment. "No," she said, her voice barely steady. If it's okay, I'd like to just get it done today. Dr. Hunt studied her for a moment, and Maya had the strange feeling that he could see right through her brave facade to the terrified woman underneath. But when he spoke, there was nothing but respect in his voice. "That's absolutely okay," he said. "And I want you to know that we can stop at any point if you feel uncomfortable. This is your appointment and you're in control. All right?" Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. What she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know in that moment, was that the man standing before her was more than just a doctor. Dr. Alexander. Hunt was the youngest member of Sterling Medical Center's board of directors, the heir to a pharmaceutical fortune worth hundreds of millions, and someone who usually spent his Fridays in boardrooms rather than examination rooms. He'd only agreed to cover Dr. Morrison's appointments as a favor to a colleague, expecting a routine afternoon of screenings and consultations. He definitely hadn't expected to walk into room 4C and find himself completely thrown off balance by a shy young woman with kind eyes and trembling hands who was clearly forcing herself to be brave, as Alexander pulled up her chart on his tablet and began explaining the procedure. He found himself being extra careful with his words, taking more time than usual to make sure she understood each step. This wasn't unusual for him. He prided himself on his bedside manner. But something about this particular patient made him want to be especially gentle. Maya listened to his explanations, her anxiety slowly giving way to a different kind of nervousness as she became acutely aware of how professional and kind he was being. His voice was calm and reassuring, and despite her embarrassment, she found herself actually feeling a tiny bit more at ease. She had no idea that this unexpected appointment, this moment of forcing herself to face her fears despite wanting nothing more than to run away, was about to change her entire life. The examination itself was nothing like Maya had feared. Dr. Hunt talked her through every single step before he did anything, his voice steady and calm like he had all the time in the world. He explained what he was looking for, why each part of the screening was important, and kept checking in with her to make sure she was okay. "You're doing great," he said at one point, and Maya realized with surprise that her death grip on the edge of the table had loosened slightly. But then his expression changed. Maya saw it happen. The way his eyebrows drew together just slightly, the way he paused for a fraction of a second longer than seemed normal. Her heart, which had finally started to slow down, kicked back into overdrive. "What?" she asked, her voice coming out sharper than she intended. "What is it?" Dr. Hunt's face smoothed back into professional neutrality, but Maya had already seen that flicker of concern. "I'm feeling a small irregularity," he said carefully. "It's quite small. Probably nothing to worry about, but I'd like to do an ultrasound to get a better look. Would that be all right? Probably nothing to worry about." The words that doctors said right before they told you something terrible. Maya had read enough medical dramas, watched enough hospital shows to know how this worked. "Is it?" Maya couldn't even finish the question. Her throat felt too tight. "Hey," Dr. Hunt said, and his tone was so genuinely kind that Maya found herself actually looking at him instead of staring at the wall like she'd been doing for most of the examination. "I know this is scary, but most lumps we find turn out to be completely benign. Cysts, fibrous tissue, nothing dangerous at all. I just want to be thorough and make sure we know exactly what we're dealing with. The ultrasound will give us much better information than I can get from the physical exam alone." Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She wanted to cry. She wanted to run. She wanted to be anywhere but here. Dr. Hunt must have read something in her expression because he pulled over a rolling stool and sat down, putting himself at eye level with her instead of looming above. It was such a small gesture, but it made Maya feel a little less like a patient and a little more like a person. "I'm going to be completely honest with you," he said, "because I think you're the kind of person who'd rather know the truth than be given empty reassurances. Yes, we found something that needs further investigation, but the fact that it's small, the fact that you're young and have no family history of breast cancer based on your intake form, these are all good signs. The ultrasound is just the next step. We'll take it one step at a time, okay?" There was something about the way he said "we" that made Maya's panic ease just slightly. Like she wasn't alone in this. "Okay," she whispered. The ultrasound room was down the hall, and a female technician was already setting up the equipment by the time they got there. Dr. Hunt introduced her as Lisa, And Lisa had the kind of cheerful, no-nonsense energy that somehow made medical procedures feel less frightening. "All right, sweetie, this gel is going to be cold," Lisa warned before squirting what felt like an entire bottle of freezing goo onto Maya's skin. "Everyone always jumps, so I'm just giving you fair warning." Maya did jump and Lisa laughed good-naturedly. "Told you. Now just hold still while we take a look." Dr. Hunt stood slightly to the side, watching the ultrasound monitor with an intensity that made Maya nervous all over again. She couldn't see the screen from where she was lying, which was probably for the best because she had no idea what she'd be looking at anyway. The minutes ticked by in silence except for the occasional click of Lisa pressing buttons to capture images. Maya stared at the ceiling tiles, counting them, trying to think about anything other than what might be happening inside her body. "There it is," Dr. Hunt said quietly, and Maya's heart stopped. "Can you measure it for me?" he asked Lisa, and there was more clicking, more silence. "About 8 millimeters, Lisa reported. "Edges look pretty regular." "Could be a simple cyst." "Could be," Dr. Hunt echoed, but his tone was non-committal. "Let's get a few more angles." The examination went on for what felt like hours, but was probably only 15 minutes. Finally, Lisa wiped the gel off Maya's skin and helped her sit up. "The doctor will go over the results with you," she said with a warm smile before slipping out of the room. Dr. Hunt pulled up a stool again, and Maya braced herself for bad news. "So," he began, pulling up the ultrasound images on the computer screen and angling it so Maya could see. "This is what we found." He pointed to a small dark spot on the grainy black and white image. To Maya, it looked like every other blob and shadow on the screen, but he seemed to know exactly what he was looking at. "It's a small mass, about 8 millimeters across. The good news is that it has fairly regular borders, which usually indicates a benign cyst. However, I can't say that with complete certainty based on the ultrasound alone. The responsible thing to do is to schedule you for a biopsy." "A biopsy," Maya repeated numbly. The word felt heavy in her mouth. "It's a minor procedure," Dr. Hunt explained. "We use a small needle to take a sample of cells from the mass, then send it to pathology for testing. It will tell us definitively whether this is something we need to worry about or not." Maya felt like she was underwater, like his words were coming from very far away. A biopsy, testing, pathology. These were words from other people's lives, from the sad stories you heard on the news or read about online. Not from her life. Not from the quiet existence of a librarian who just wanted to be left alone with her books. "When?" she managed to ask. Dr. Hunt checked something on his tablet. "I can get you in next Friday. Same time if that works for you." "Another week?" Maya's voice cracked. "I have to wait another whole week to find out if I have cancer?" She hadn't meant to say it out loud, hadn't meant to let the fear escape. But there it was. The word she'd been dancing around in her head since the moment his expression had changed during the exam. "Hey, no," Dr. Hunt said firmly. And before Maya realized what was happening, he'd handed her a box of tissues. She hadn't even noticed she was crying. "We don't know that you have cancer. In fact, based on what I'm seeing, I think it's much more likely that this is a harmless cyst. But we have to be certain. A week isn't ideal, I know, but the biopsy slots fill up fast. I'll personally make sure you're scheduled with our best technician." Maya wiped her eyes, feeling embarrassed by her outburst. "I'm sorry. I'm not normally like this." "You have nothing to apologize for," Dr. Hunt said, and he sounded like he meant it. "You're dealing with scary news and you're allowed to be upset. Actually, I think you're handling this remarkably well." Maya let out a shaky laugh. "Really? Because I feel like I'm falling apart." "Trust me, I've seen people handle things much worse," he said with a slight smile. "You walked into a medical appointment that was already stressful for you, got surprised by a different doctor than you expected, and then received concerning news. And you're still here, still asking questions, still trying to understand. That takes strength." Something about the way he looked at her when he said that made Maya's stomach do a weird flip that had nothing to do with anxiety. She quickly looked away, focusing on shredding the tissue in her hands into tiny pieces. Dr. Hunt stood up and moved back to his computer, typing quickly. "I'm putting in the order for the biopsy now. You'll get a confirmation email with the exact time, and my office number will be in there as well. If you have any questions before then, and I mean any questions, even if you think they might be silly, please call." "That's what I'm here for." "Okay," Maya said quietly. "I'm also going to give you my card," he continued. pulling a business card from his coat pocket and writing something on the back of it. "This is my direct line. The one on the front goes through the hospital switchboard, but this one on the back comes straight to me. Again, if you need anything, please don't hesitate." Maya took the card, surprised by the gesture. She'd never had a doctor give her their direct number before. "Thank you," she said, and meant it. As she got dressed after he left the room, Maya's hands were still shaking, but for different reasons now. She looked at the business card in her hand. Dr. Alexander Hunt, MD Sterling Medical Center Board, certified in internal medicine. She flipped it over to see the number he'd written on the back in neat, precise handwriting. Next to it, he'd written 2 words. "You've got this." Maya felt tears prick her eyes again, but this time they weren't entirely from fear. The next week was the longest of Maya's life. She went through the motions at work, helping patrons find books, organizing shelves, sitting at the reference desk answering questions about library card renewals and printer problems. But her mind was somewhere else entirely. She'd researched breast lumps online within an hour of getting home from the appointment, which was absolutely the wrong thing to do. Every website gave her different statistics, different outcomes, different reasons to panic. By midnight that first night, she'd convinced herself she was dying. Riley had called on Saturday morning, and Maya had broken down and told her everything. Her friend had immediately offered to come over, to go with her to the biopsy, to do whatever Maya needed. Maya had declined the company at first. She wasn't good at accepting help. But Riley had insisted on at least taking her out for coffee that afternoon. "You can't just sit at home spiraling," Riley had said firmly. "I know you. You'll spend the entire week on WebMD convincing yourself you have every disease known to humanity." She wasn't wrong. Over coffee, Riley had tried to distract her with gossip about their mutual friends, stories from her job at the marketing agency, anything to get Maya's mind off the upcoming biopsy. It had worked for short bursts, but Maya kept finding herself drifting back to that examination room, to the feeling of dread when Dr. Hunt's expression had changed. And if she was being completely honest with herself, she also kept thinking about the way he'd looked at her when he said she was handling things well, the way he'd sat down to talk to her at eye level instead of standing over her, the way he'd given her his direct number. She'd pulled out his card at least a dozen times over the week, running her fingers over the embossed letters of his name, reading those 2 handwritten words over and over. "You've got this." On Wednesday afternoon, while she was shelving returns in the biography section, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Maya. This is Dr. Hunt. Just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. Remember, any questions at all, I'm here." Maya stared at her phone in shock. Doctors didn't do this. Doctors didn't text patients to check on them, did they? She typed and deleted 3 different responses before finally settling on something simple. "I'm okay. Nervous about Friday, but trying to stay positive. Thank you for checking." His response came almost immediately. "Being nervous is completely normal. But I've looked at your images several more times, and I really do think we're going to get good news. Try to take care of yourself this week." Maya read the message 5 times, analyzing every word like it was a text from a crush instead of her doctor, which was ridiculous. He was just being nice. This was probably how he was with all his patients. But then why did her heart speed up every time her phone buzzed for the rest of the week? Friday arrived too quickly and not quickly enough. Maya had barely slept the night before, tossing and turning, imagining every possible outcome. When her alarm went off at 7, she felt like she hadn't slept at all. Riley had insisted on coming with her this time, and Maya was secretly grateful. They arrived at Sterling Medical Center 20 minutes early, and Riley kept up a steady stream of chatter in the waiting room that helped keep Maya's panic at manageable levels. When the nurse called her name, Riley squeezed her hand. "You've got this," she said. Those same words from Dr. Hunt's card. Maybe if enough people said them, Maya would start to believe it. The biopsy room was smaller than the ultrasound room had been, with more equipment that looked vaguely intimidating. But then Dr. Hunt walked in, and Maya felt something in her chest loosen just slightly. "Good morning, Maya," he said with a warm smile. "How are you holding up?" "I've been better," Maya admitted. "But I'm here." "That's all that matters," he said. "I'm going to walk you through exactly what's going to happen, and then we'll get this done as quickly and painlessly as possible." "Sound good?" Maya nodded. And for the next 10 minutes, Dr. Hunt explained the procedure in detail, showing her the equipment, telling her what she'd feel and when. There was something about his calm, methodical explanation that made the whole thing seem less scary. The actual biopsy was uncomfortable but not as bad as Maya had feared. Dr. Hunt talked her through every step, and she focused on his voice instead of what was happening. It was over in less than 15 minutes. All done, he said, applying a small bandage. You did great. Really great. When will I know the results? Maya asked, the question that had been haunting her all week. Pathology usually takes 3 to 5 business days, Dr. Hunt said, but I've put a rush on yours. I should have results by Wednesday at the latest, and I'll call you personally as soon as I know anything. As Maya got ready to leave, Dr. Hunt did something that surprised her again. He walked her out to the waiting room where Riley was sitting, and he took a moment to explain the aftercare instructions to both of them, making sure Riley understood what signs to watch for. Take care of yourself, he said to Maya as they prepared to leave, and try not to worry too much. I know that's easier said than done, but really try. Walking out of the hospital with Riley, Maya had the strangest feeling. Yes, she was scared about the results. Yes, the next few days were going to be awful, but there was something else too. Something she couldn't quite name. It wasn't until she was lying in bed that night, exhausted but unable to sleep, that she realized what it was. For the first time in her life, she'd felt truly seen by someone. Not just as a patient, not just as a problem to solve, but as a person. Dr. Hunt had looked at her like she mattered, like her fears were valid, like her courage in showing up deserved recognition. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a tiny voice whispered something that made her heart race in a completely different way than fear. What if this was just the beginning of something neither of them had expected? The call came on Tuesday afternoon, a full day earlier than expected. Maya was at work, helping an elderly man find large print mysteries when her phone vibrated in her pocket. She normally never checked her phone during work hours, but something made her glance at the screen. Dr. Alexander Hunt. Her heart stopped. Then it started racing so fast she felt dizzy. Excuse me, she mumbled to the patron, her voice coming out strangled. I need to take this. Mrs. Peterson at the desk can help you. She practically ran to the staff break room, her hands shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone before she could answer. Hello? Her voice was barely a whisper. Maya, it's Dr. Hunt. His voice was warm, calm. I have your results. Maya couldn't breathe. This was it. This was the moment that would either let her life continue as normal or change everything forever. She gripped the edge of the break room table, her knuckles white. Okay, she managed to say. It's a benign cyst, Dr. Hunt said, and Maya could hear the smile in his voice. Completely harmless. No cancer, no abnormal cells, nothing to worry about. The relief hit her so hard that her legs gave out. She sank into one of the break room chairs, tears streaming down her face before she could stop them. Maya? Are you there? I'm here, she choked out. I'm okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. You don't need to thank me. I'm just glad I could give you good news. He paused. How are you feeling, really? Maya let out a shaky laugh, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand, like I can breathe again. I've been so scared all week. I barely slept. I kept thinking about... She stopped herself. She was rambling to her doctor, who probably had 100 other patients to call. It's completely understandable, Dr. Hunt said gently. Waiting for medical results is one of the hardest things a person can go through. But now you know and you can move forward. So what happens now? Maya asked. Do I need to come back in? I'd like to see you for a follow-up in about 2 weeks, just to make sure everything is healing properly from the biopsy, and to discuss monitoring the cyst going forward. Most benign cysts don't require any treatment, but we'll want to keep an eye on it with regular screenings. Okay, Maya said. I can do that. There was a pause on the line, and Maya wondered if they were done, if he was going to say goodbye and hang up and go back to being just her doctor, who she'd see once more and then probably never again. Maya, Dr. Hunt said. His voice a little different now, a little less clinical. I hope this isn't inappropriate, but I've been thinking about your case a lot this past week. More than I probably should have, professionally speaking. Maya's heart did that weird flip again. Oh, I wanted you to know that I think you showed a lot of courage, coming in for that first appointment when you were clearly anxious, going through with the biopsy, handling the uncertainty. A lot of people would have fallen apart, but you didn't. You faced it head on. Maya didn't know what to say. She'd spent the entire week feeling like she was barely holding it together, and here he was telling her she'd been brave. "I didn't feel very brave," she admitted quietly. "Courage isn't about not being afraid," Dr. Hunt said. "It's about being terrified and doing the thing anyway. You did that." They talked for a few more minutes about the follow-up appointment, about what symptoms to watch for, about when she could return to normal activities. But underneath the medical conversation, Maya felt something else, a current of connection that shouldn't exist between a doctor and patient, but somehow did anyway. When they finally hung up, Maya sat in the break room for a long moment staring at her phone. She should feel nothing but relief right now. She should be celebrating the good news, calling Riley, maybe treating herself to something nice on the way home. Instead, she was thinking about the way Dr. Hunt had said her name. The way he'd admitted he'd been thinking about her case more than he probably should have. What did that mean? The 2 weeks until her follow-up appointment crawled by. Maya threw herself into work, volunteered for extra shifts, reorganized the entire reference section even though it didn't need it. Riley noticed something was off but attributed it to Maya processing the stress of the health scare. "You're allowed to feel weird after something like that," Riley had said over dinner one night. "You literally thought you might have cancer. That messes with your head." But it wasn't just that. Maya kept finding herself thinking about Dr. Hunt at the strangest times. When she was cataloging new books, she'd wonder what kind of books he liked to read. When she was making coffee in the morning, she'd think about how he took his coffee. It was ridiculous. She barely knew him, and yet he'd texted her twice more over those 2 weeks. Just brief check-ins, asking how she was feeling, reminding her to take it easy. Each time, her heart would race when she saw his name on her screen. The morning of her follow-up appointment, Maya changed her outfit 3 times. She told herself it was because she wanted to look professional, put together. The fact that she also spent extra time on her hair and wore the tiniest bit of makeup had nothing to do with who she'd be seeing. She was lying to herself, and she knew it. Sterling Medical Center felt different this time, less intimidating. Maya walked through the lobby with her head up instead of staring at the floor. When she checked in at the 4th-floor reception desk, the woman remembered her. "Good to see you again, Maya. Dr. Hunt is ready for you in room 4C. The same room as the first time." Maya wondered if that was on purpose. Dr. Hunt was already in the room when she arrived, studying something on his tablet. He looked up when she entered, and his face broke into a genuine smile that made Maya's stomach flutter. "Maya, come in. How are you feeling?" "Much better," she said honestly. "I can't tell you how much it meant to get good news. I feel like I can actually relax now. I'm so glad." He gestured to the examination table. "This should be quick. I just want to check how the biopsy site is healing, and then we can talk about the monitoring plan going forward." The examination was brief and professional. The biopsy site had healed perfectly. Dr. Hunt explained that she should come in for a screening every 6 months for the next year, just to make sure the cyst wasn't changing or growing, but that everything looked good. "Any questions?" he asked when they were done. Maya should have said no. Should have thanked him and left and made her next appointment with the receptionist on the way out. Should have let this be the end of whatever strange connection had formed between them. Instead, she heard herself say, "Can I ask you something that's not medical?" Dr. Hunt looked surprised but not uncomfortable. "Of course. Why did you give me your personal number?" The question came out before Maya could stop it. "And why did you check in on me? I mean, I appreciated it so much, but do you do that for all your patients?" For a long moment, Dr. Hunt didn't answer. He set his tablet down on the counter and looked at her with an expression Maya couldn't quite read. "No," he said finally. "I don't." The air in the room felt charged, heavy with something unspoken. "I probably shouldn't tell you this," Dr. Hunt continued, running a hand through his hair in a gesture that seemed uncharacteristically nervous. "But I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since that first appointment. And I know that's completely inappropriate. You're my patient. There are ethical boundaries. I could get in serious trouble for even saying this out loud." Maya's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "But," he continued, "I also think you should know that the way I've felt these past few weeks isn't something I've ever experienced with a patient before. The concern I had about your results went way beyond professional. When I got your pathology report back and saw it was benign, I felt relief that had nothing to do with medicine and everything to do with not wanting to see you hurt." "I don't know what to say," Maya whispered. You don't have to say anything, Dr. Hunt said quickly. I'm not asking you for anything. I just needed to be honest. After your monitoring period is done, after you're no longer my patient, if you wanted to, I don't know, maybe grab coffee sometime? Just as two people, not as doctor and patient. Maya stared at him, her mind racing. This didn't happen. Handsome doctors who were apparently also millionaires based on what she'd accidentally discovered when she'd Googled his name one sleepless night didn't ask shy librarians out for coffee. You don't even know me, she said. I know you're braver than you think you are, Dr. Hunt said. I know you work at the library downtown because it's listed as your employer in your paperwork. I know you have a friend named Riley who clearly cares about you a lot, based on the way she grilled me about aftercare instructions. I know you have terrible health anxiety, but you face it anyway. I know you shred tissues when you're nervous and you count ceiling tiles to calm yourself down. He'd noticed all of that. Maya felt her cheeks burning. I know it's crazy, Dr. Hunt continued. I know the timing is terrible and the situation is complicated. But I also know that I've never met anyone quite like you. And I'd regret it for the rest of my life if I didn't at least ask. Maya's mind was spinning. Part of her wanted to say yes immediately, to throw caution to the wind and see where this impossible thing might lead. But the other part, the anxious, overthinking part, was already cataloging all the reasons this was a terrible idea. I need time to think, she said finally. Dr. Hunt nodded, and if he was disappointed, he didn't show it. Of course. Take all the time you need. My offer stands whenever you're ready. If you're ready. He pulled out his prescription pad and wrote something down, then handed it to her. It wasn't a prescription, it was his personal email address. For when you decide, he said. No pressure, no expectations, just a possibility. Maya took the paper with trembling fingers and tucked it into her purse. The rest of the appointment was professionally cordial. Dr. Hunt scheduled her for a 6-month follow-up, reminded her about symptoms to watch for, and wished her well. But there was a new tension in the room now, an awareness of something hanging between them. When Maya left the hospital, her mind was chaos. She walked 3 blocks in the wrong direction before she realized it, so lost in thought that she barely noticed where she was going. A doctor had just basically asked her out. Not just any doctor. A wealthy, successful, incredibly handsome doctor who could probably date anyone he wanted. And he'd chosen to be interested in her. In Maya Patel, the girl who could barely make it through a medical appointment without having a panic attack. She called Riley the second she got home. He said, "What?" Riley shrieked so loud that Maya had to pull the phone away from her ear. Maya repeated the story, every detail, while Riley made increasingly dramatic sounds of disbelief. Okay, so let me get this straight, Riley said when Maya finished. This gorgeous doctor who is apparently also rich, did I hear that right? Told you he's been thinking about you nonstop and wants to take you out when you're not his patient anymore? That's basically it, yes. And you said you needed to think about it? Riley, it's complicated. There are ethical issues, professional boundaries. Maya, honey, I love you, but sometimes you overthink things to death. This man has been nothing but respectful and professional, while also making it clear that he's interested in you as a person. He's not asking you to run away and get married. He's asking you to coffee eventually, when it's appropriate. But what if it doesn't work out? What if I'm terrible at dating and he realizes I'm boring? What if it does work out? Riley countered. What if this is the start of something amazing and you miss it because you're too scared to try? After they hung up, Maya pulled out the piece of paper with Dr. Hunt's email address. She stared at it for a long time, thinking about courage, about the way he'd said she was braver than she thought. Maybe it was time to be brave in a different way. She opened her laptop and started typing an email. She deleted it. Started again, deleted it again. On the 3rd try, she managed to write something that didn't sound completely ridiculous. Dr. Hunt, this is Maya. I've been thinking about what you said today. I think I'd like that coffee. When the time is right. Until then, maybe we could just talk as friends? If that's not too weird. Maya, she hit send before she could change her mind. His response came 30 minutes later. Maya, I'd really like that. How do you feel about books? I've been meaning to ask a librarian for some good recommendations. Alexander. Maya smiled at her screen, her heart doing that flip that was becoming familiar now. She typed back, her fingers moving faster, more confident. Well, it just so happens I know a thing or two about book. And just like that, something new began. Over the next 3 months, Maya's life changed in ways she never could have imagined. It started with emails about books. Alexander would write to her during his lunch breaks asking for recommendations. Maya discovered he loved historical fiction and biographies, anything that told a real story about real people. She'd send him carefully curated lists, each book chosen specifically for what she thought he might enjoy. Then he started sending her books in return. Not recommendations, actual books. The first one arrived at the library's front desk with her name on it, a beautiful hardcover edition of a novel she'd mentioned loving but had never owned. The note inside read simply, "Everyone should own their favorite books." Riley had screamed when Maya showed her. "He's courting you!" "This is actual courting. We're just friends," Maya had insisted, but even she didn't believe it. The emails grew longer, more personal. Alexander told her about the pressure of living up to his family's expectations, about how he'd gone into medicine because he genuinely wanted to help people, not because of the family pharmaceutical business. Maya told him about her dream of writing a novel someday, something she'd barely admitted even to Riley. "You should write it," he'd written back. "I'd love to read something you created." They graduated from emails to text messages, then to phone calls. The first time he called her, Maya had stared at her ringing phone for 3 rings before answering, her heart in her throat. "I hope this is okay," Alexander had said. "I just realized I've never actually heard your voice outside of a medical setting." They'd talked for 2 hours that night, then 3 hours the next week. Soon they were talking almost every evening about everything and nothing. Maya found herself opening up in ways she never had before, sharing thoughts and feelings she usually kept locked away. 4 months after that first appointment, Maya went in for her follow-up screening. It was scheduled with Dr. Morrison this time. Alexander had insisted, saying it would be better for both of them if he wasn't her doctor anymore. The screening was fine. The cyst unchanged. Dr. Morrison was professional and kind. But Maya found herself missing Alexander's calm presence, the way he'd always made her feel safe. When she left the hospital that day, she found Alexander waiting in the lobby. He was in casual clothes instead of his white coat, jeans and a sweater that made him look younger, more approachable. "Hi," he said, and the smile on his face was nervous in a way she'd never seen before. "You're officially not my patient anymore." Maya's heart skipped. "I guess I'm not." "So I was wondering," Alexander said, "if maybe you'd like to have dinner with me. Like an actual date? If you're interested, I mean. No pressure if you're not." "Yes," Maya interrupted, surprising herself with how quickly the word came out. "I'd really like that." The smile that spread across his face was worth every anxious moment of the past 4 months. Their first date was at a small Italian restaurant, tucked away on a quiet street. The kind of place that felt intimate without being intimidating. Alexander had clearly thought about what would make Maya comfortable. He'd chosen a corner table, somewhere she wouldn't feel like people were watching them. Maya had been terrified all day, changing outfits 5 times and nearly canceling twice. But the moment she saw Alexander waiting outside the restaurant, all her anxiety melted into something else entirely. He looked at her like she was the only person in the world. "You look beautiful," he said, and Maya believed him. Dinner was easy in a way Maya hadn't expected. They already knew so much about each other from months of conversations that there was no awkward small talk, no struggling to find things to say. They talked about books and medicine and the strange paths that had led them both to where they were. "I still can't believe this is real," Maya admitted over dessert. 4 months ago I was terrified just walking into that hospital. Now I'm sitting here having dinner with someone someone I really like. Someone who really likes you back," Alexander said softly. "Maya, I need you to know something. I've dated before, obviously, but I've never felt like this. Most people in my life see the money or the career or the family name. You just see me." "That's all I've ever seen," Maya said honestly. He reached across the table and took her hand, and Maya felt that touch all the way to her bones. Over the next 2 months, they fell into a rhythm. Coffee dates at the cafe near the library, long walks through the park on Sunday afternoons, movie nights at Maya's small apartment, where they'd sit on her worn couch surrounded by her books and talk until midnight. Alexander fit into her life in a way that felt both surprising and inevitable. He got along with Riley, who approved wholeheartedly, and kept texting Maya things like marry him with an excessive number of heart emojis. He came to the library sometimes during her shift, pretending to browse while really just wanting to see her. Maya felt herself changing, not into someone different, but into a more confident version of herself. The shy, anxious girl who could barely make it through a doctor's appointment was still there, but she was learning that being scared didn't mean she had to hide. But nothing good ever stays simple forever. It happened on a Tuesday evening. Maya was at Alexander's apartment for the first time, a stunning penthouse that made her feel completely out of her depth, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive furniture. Alexander had insisted it was just a place to live, nothing special, but to Maya it felt like stepping into a different world. They were cooking dinner together, or rather Alexander was cooking, while Maya sat at the kitchen counter pretending to help but mostly just watching him work. She was laughing at something he'd said when his phone rang. Alexander glanced at the screen and his expression changed. "I need to take this. It's my mother." He stepped out onto the balcony, and even though Maya tried not to listen, she could hear his voice getting tense through the glass. When he came back inside 5 minutes later, he looked stressed in a way Maya had never seen. "Everything okay?" she asked. Alexander ran his hand through his hair. That gesture she'd learned meant he was anxious. "My mother wants to have dinner with me this weekend. She says it's important." "That sounds nice," Maya said, not understanding why he looked so worried. "She knows about you," Alexander said quietly. "Someone saw us together and told her. She's not happy about it." Maya felt her stomach drop. "Oh, Maya, I need to tell you something about my family." Alexander sat down next to her, taking her hands in his. "They have very specific expectations about who I should be with. Someone from the right kind of family. Someone who can help with the business. Someone who fits into their world. Someone who isn't a librarian," Maya said, her voice small. "Someone who isn't you. And that's their loss," Alexander said firmly. "But I need you to know that they're going to push back on this. My mother can be intense. She's already called this dinner because she wants to talk me out of seeing you." Maya pulled her hands away, standing up. The beautiful apartment suddenly felt suffocating. Maybe she's right. Maybe this is crazy. We're from completely different worlds, Alexander. Look at this place. I could never afford the furniture in just this room. Your family probably thinks I'm some gold digger trying to trap you. I don't care what they think, Alexander said, standing too. Maya, look at me. I don't care about any of that. You're not from a different world, you're from the real world. My world is the strange one, full of people who care more about money and status than actual human connection. You're the most genuine person I've ever met. But what if this doesn't work? Maya's voice cracked. What if your family makes things impossible? What if eventually you realize they're right, and you'd be better off with someone from your world? That's not going to happen. You can't know that.